we're solving rational equations. It's going to be a day 1 and day 2 type thing. I just don't want to overwhelm it with 75 different examples here. So the same thing that we've been doing, we're going to have to find the least common denominator. And the one thing that we have to do, and we know by definition that we cannot divide by 0. You cannot divide by 0. With that being said, x could be anything but 0. So that's one of those things you have to do before you even start doing anything. So x must be different than 0 because you cannot divide by 0. So remember that. So my least common denominator here would definitely be x. So that's an easy one. Like everything that we've been doing, but now we have an extra step. So I'll drop the numerator right here, leave some room. Numerator, leave some room, equal sign, numerator, some room. Everything that we've been doing, same thing. So I'm going to number this. I usually don't do this, but since it's the first example, 1, 2, 3, because this is 1, 2, and 3. So what we're going to put in parentheses right there, number 1, is going to be the least common denominator divided by the denominator. And we found the least common denominator to be x and the denominator in 1 to be x. Divide those two, simplify, you get 1. This 1 is going to go right there. We're going to do the same thing for number 2. Same idea, LCD divide by D. LCD, x, divide by D. D on number 2 is, oh, it doesn't have anything. It's 1. Every whole number is always over 1. X divided by 1 is x. Put it right there. 2, 2, right there. Number 3, LCD divided by D. LCD, right there, x. D, denominator on 3 is x. X divided by x, 1. 1 right there. All right. Now, just because I have all the denominators being the same, I can make this go away. That is a good thing, right? Because now we're going to distribute. So 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times x, 2x. 6 times 1, 6. Now it's piece of cake to solve this. This is linear. Everybody knows how to solve linear equations. Take away 5 from both sides. Bring this down. You have 1. Divide. You have 1/2. Now, before you write your solution, you need to check what x cannot be. The restriction here was x should be anything different than 0. And I got the x equals 1/2. If I got x equals 1/2, that means it's not my restriction. That means this is a good answer. I'm not going to do that for every problem. We've been doing this for 2 weeks now. If you need, you can come back and watch this again. Couple things that need to happen before we start solving this. We're going to have to find the LCD for sure. For us to find the LCD, the least common denominator, we have to factor these guys. X, x plus 1. So LCD between x, x plus 1, and x. So x, x plus 1. Now, we know we cannot divide by 0. So I'm going to set each one of them equal to 0 so I know what x cannot be. So x, x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to solve this. X cannot be 0. X plus 1 minus 1 from both sides. So x cannot be 0 or negative 1. So those are my restrictions. This is the same as that, so I already solved this. This is the same as that, so I already solved it. If they were different, I would have to do this again until I covered every single one of my denominators. LCD, x plus 1. Bring the numerator down, leave some room, numerator, room, equals, minus 1, leave some room. Again, we know the drill. We're going to get the common denominator, divide by the denominator. These two cancel out, these two cancel out. I have 1, not 0. These guys divide by that guy. These two simplify, I have x left over. I know I'm going super fast, but if you don't know this by now, you need to go back and watch the other videos where you're literally adding and subtracting only. LCD divided by D. These two simplify, I have x plus 1. Common denominator goes away. Go away. Distribute and solve the linear inequality. Equality, we're not doing inequality yet. We will. So 3 plus 3x equals, distribute the negative 1. We're solving for x, so I'm going to add x to both sides right here, and I am taking away 3 from both sides. If you need to do this in more than one step, go for it. 3 and 1 is 4. 1 and 3 is negative 4. Divide both sides. I get x is negative 1. Look at my restriction right here. If I get that x is negative 1, that will give me 0 in the denominator, and I cannot have that. So because of this answer, this is no solution. So if you get an answer that equals your restriction, that means no solution, because that will end up giving you a 0 in the denominator, and you can't do that. So we simplify, we start out by factoring. So x plus 5, x minus 2. You multiply those two, you get negative 10. You add those two, you get 3. So LCD right there is x plus 5, x minus 2. Before you start solving, do the restrictions. So if I have x minus 2 equals 0, we don't want your denominator to be 0. So if I add 2 to both sides, x must be different than 2. This is one restriction. The other one, I have this denominator right here. I make this equal 0. And we both know to solve quadratics, you set each term equal to 0. This one I already did. So I'm not going to do it again because it's already there. So I'm going to set this one equal to 0 or different than 0 because I know that that's going to be my restriction. So I minus 5 on both sides. So x must be different than 2 and x must be different than negative 5. If I get any of those answers, I'm going to end up having no solution. Least common denominator, x plus 5, x minus 2. Bring the numerator down, leave some room, numerator, leave some room, numerator, leave some room. All right, LCD divided by the denominator. When they're the same, that equals 1, or you can cancel them out, leaving you with x plus 5. The next one is right there. Least common denominator divided by the denominator. I have again x plus 5. Least common denominator divided by the denominator. They're the same thing. These two cancel out. These two cancel out. I have 1. Denominator goes away. Distribute. Oh, I got a quadratic equation right there. So I'm going to set it equal to 0 by doing minus 2x from both sides. Minus 10. That equals 0. Now I'm going to solve by factoring. So two numbers that multiply to negative 4 and the same two numbers that add up to negative 3, positive 3, excuse me, is positive 4 and negative 1. Now, for us to solve the quadratic, I set each factor equal to 0. Minus 4 to both sides. Check your restrictions right there. So this is good. Again, check. So your solution here will be x equals negative 4, x equals 1, and that's the end. So this one I have two answers. Right there and right there. I have one more example for you. All right, LCD is going to be both, so x plus 2, x minus 2. We already know the drill. We're going to have to set up the restriction here by setting it up equal to 0 or different than 0, because I know x can be anything but equal to that number that makes the denominator equal 0. So x must be different than positive 2 and negative 2. So I have two restrictions on this one also. Least common denominator, x plus 2, x minus 2. Bring the numerator down, leave some room. All right, so x plus 2, x minus 2 divided by x plus 2. I have x minus 2 left over. X plus 2, x minus 2 divided by x minus 2. I have x plus 2. X plus 2, x minus 2 divided by 1, it's the same guys right there. All right, denominator goes away. Distribute. There's a bunch to distribute right here. Careful with that negative. I'm going to do FOIL here first, and then I'm going to distribute the 2. So FOIL there. I can identify that this is difference of squares. So I'm going to end up with x squared minus 4. If you want to actually do the manual FOIL or do the box, go for it. Distribute. I'm going to combine at the same time. I'm going to set this up equal to 0. To take away 1 is 1x squared. This is 0. Here I have 6x. Again, I'm going to solve by factoring. GCF right there is x. That means I'm dividing both of them by x. Set each factor equal to 0. Minus 6 on both sides. Check your restrictions. My restrictions were x can be anything but positive and negative 2, and I got x equals 0, x equals negative 6, so these are my two answers.